And I wanted to just sort of begin, if you're not familiar with this being that the Tibetans call Sangye Menla. Sangye Menla is the Tibetan word for medicine Buddha. In his sort of personal form, in the form in which we encounter this being, his name in the Sanskrit is Baishajye, and the Tibetan pronunciation is Bekhandze. So this is how I learned medicine Buddha practice is through the Tibetan lens. Bekhandze is medicine Buddha, and the first place that we find this Buddha is in something called, it's a sutra called the Baishajye Guru Vaidurya Prabha Raja Sutra. So I'm going to say it again, Baishajye Guru Vaidurya Prabha Raja Sutra. Now this is something around in the 7th century CE. We find this text also remaining in the Chinese language. It has been translated. And largely the intention here is to basically generate the aspiration of the bodhisattva through what we call bodhicitta, or the mind of awakening, through loving compassion in the face of suffering. And this notion that when we cultivate the heart of the bodhisattva, or the being who is awake through love, through compassion, through attending to suffering skillfully, that bodhicitta actually, this quality of resolve, of aspiration, aids in our awakening as well as the awakening of others, that it's not distinct. These aren't distinct from each other. So in a sense, we're cultivating a sense of non-duality in relationship. And part of that is recognition of interdependence, that we are not different from each other, no matter where we are, what country we're in, what people are doing what to us, and or perhaps vice versa. So this deity practice that we're going to do is actually quite standard for many of the Vajrayana meditation practices, where we may say meditate on green Tara, or Amitabha Buddha, or some other being that is, from a Vajrayana point of view, a representation of certain qualities that we already have within us. So when we practice medicine Buddha, we're actually not necessarily just drawing on a being that is separate from us, but we're kind of using a conventional sort of form, a concept, a being to awaken qualities within us. In other words, we are becoming the deity. We are opening ourselves up to becoming medicine Buddha for others. Does that make sense? Yeah. So embodying this bodhicitta spirit, one of the things we find in the sutra are the 12 vows within the Medicine Buddha Sutra. And among these 12 vows, here there are, these vows are offered freely to all. Yeah? When we say, for example, in the Bodhisattva, the 4 Bodhisattva vows, I vow to liberate all sentient beings. And here we very intentionally say the word all, not just these over here, but not those over there. And part of this is really establishing a firm openness to all beings, whether we like them or not, whether we agree with them or not. And whatever the medicine is that they need, this is what we extend to them. So it may be, let's say, to an oppressor, we wish for them to realize ultimate wisdom, the truth of interdependence. If it's to someone who is a victim of violence, it is that they find this quality of medicine Buddha that is healing trauma, perhaps healing grief and loss that has happened in the midst of terrible violence, as we're seeing in the Middle East at this point. So these qualities that the medicine Buddha within us embody are multi-layered and meant to be very specific for the population or the situation that we're sending love to. So included in these qualities, what we're doing is receiving and then radiating the radiant light of the Medicine Buddha. There are two, in some images, you see the Medicine Buddha is accompanied by two images, sun and moon, and one is called, the sun is called the Surya Prabha, the light of the sun, and the other one is the Chandra Prabha, the light of the moon. So it's sort of a yin-yang kind of thing. You have these two that make up one boundless form of radiance that is unitary. Anyway, we don't have to worry so much about those, the Chandra and the Surya, the moon and the sun. The point being that this quality of luminosity also contains within it the quality of warmth, of heat. And this is very common in Tibetan tantras. That light also is an embodiment of heat or warmth, such as the warmth of love, of compassion. And within that warmth, or within that heat, is a sense of well-being and joy. In a way, sometimes it's called the light heat bliss. And whether or not it's blissful, really we're talking about this radiance of well-being. It's not just this totally unfocused kinetic energy. But what the Medicine Buddha practice does, it helps to focus that quality of energy that and be very intentional and specific with it. So that it's not just we're radiant beings, but we're intentionally offering it to specific people or animals. It could be to the planet. So this is a practice that I did as a chaplain, working with people at the end of life. And it's understood that when we practice this, we can either practice it for ourselves or we can practice it on behalf of others. So there were times where I would sit at the bedside and I would just go into practice and basically visualize the person next to me and Medicine Buddha or Sangye Menna being above him or her or them, and basically radiating the light of Medicine Buddha into this person's body through the heart, from Medicine Buddha's heart into their heart. And then seeing them as Medicine Buddha, right? So it was a very strong visualization that I would do for them if they desired this, if they were especially familiar with it. So qualities of these vows, these 12 vows that we find in the Baishajye Guru Vaidurya Prabha Raja Sutra. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Is things like strength of energy for healing, for recovery, for physical as well as mental suffering, for healing, freedom from pain, the spirit of generosity, of really offering our generosity to them, and also awakening their own wisdom within their own generosity of spirit, as well as living in harmony. And this is in the third vow. I'm not going to go through all 12 vows, but in the third vow, I saw this earlier today. And as I was sort of thinking about our practice together, I thought this one makes sense, especially abiding, living together in a sense of harmony, of mutuality. So healing for the injured, healing for the helpless, that they find a way to have agency, if you will, to have a sense of autonomy and self-determination. Those who are victims of natural disasters, starvation, poverty, and desolation. And the intention here is really to awaken and create the conditions through our intentions as much as possible, especially in community practice. This is the intention that if we do this together, that we are transformed by doing it, when we are really cognizant of practicing this in a group, that all beings can flourish, that flourishing is possible. So how does this practice work? Well, it begins usually, the sadhana, the formal practice usually begins with offering up gratitude to the triple gem, which is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And then beginning with some preliminaries and such. We're going to start with the chant, the Medicine Buddha chant. I will chant the long form. It's not intuitive. So I will chant it a few times. And then at the end is the short form of the chant, which anyone is welcome to practice with me. So let's see. Oh, thank you, Tajay. Baishajye Guru Vadurya Prabharaja. Tajay always has my back. Thank you, my brother. Before we do that, I'm going to show you some slides. And if you'd like to practice with the image of the Medicine Buddha, that is fine. You can, as I mentioned, you can also substitute your own being or energy, if you like. It could just be a sense of luminosity above you, but whatever resonates with you or from your tradition. So let's share this. And I have to move this thing here, hide the floating meeting controls. And it always makes me smile when I see that, floating meeting controls. That sounds fancy. Okay. Are you seeing the full screen, the slide as full screen? Okay. So this is just one representation of Sangye Menla, or the Medicine Buddha, or Bekhandze. He's usually pictured as having this very deep blue color. Blue is actually the color for healing. Not only that, but it's also the color of non-duality in other contexts, which is interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, the Bodhisattva is recognizing the unity between them and the one that they are attending to. Because we all understand suffering. We all understand discontent and fear around illness, old age, sickness, and death, if you will. And even enlightenment. Some people are terrified of that, but that's for another evening. So here we see Medicine Buddha, and this is the chant in the circle around him. Often he's holding in one hand, sometimes it's like a pear, it's a fruit that represents healing, medicine, if you will. And he's sitting on what looked like a bed of lotus or clouds. I'm not sure. I'm not great with the iconography. Anyway, the color blue, this color blue, interestingly, is not just about healing, but it's healing arising from compassion. So this is also the color of compassion, interestingly. Here's another image. I really love this. If I had a print of this, this would be on my wall, probably behind me every Sunday. Here we see a mandala with Bekhandze or Baishajye at the center with the four gates. And often what we can do as part of the sadhana, if it's helpful, is to first meditate on use as a shamatha practice, the periphery, the circular part. And as we begin to sort of move in towards the center, whether we're doing the chant, the Medicine Buddha chant, or we're using this as what in Tibetan Buddhism we call a shine practice. A shine is basically a cultivation of sustained voluntary attention, a cultivation of shamatha on a sacred yidam, if you will, and using that as an object of meditation. So anyway, here we see this image of Bekhandze, his, and then here is the chant, the Medicine Buddha chant. And as we sort of move into practice together, I will, as I mentioned, I'll chant the long form of the chant, and then at the end, I'll just repeat this short form. And the word teata means thus we chant, so I'll only say that one time. And you're welcome to join with me in reciting the Om Bekhandze Bekhandze Maha Bekhandze Bekhandze Rajaya Samungate Zoha. Okay. Yeah, so this part of the chant, Teata means thus we chant. Om is that kind of opening to sort of the primordial energy of the universe. So Om is always that sense of honoring and receiving and tapping into, that energy, that primordial energy. And Bekhandze is the name of Medicine Buddha. So we chant the name Bekhandze, Bekhandze. Maha Bekhandze, Maha is great, great Medicine Buddha. Medicine Buddha in Rajaya is sort of a derivation of Raja, Rajaya, in your sort of royal being, and Samungate Zoha is Samungate has to do with may this be auspicious, and then Soha is the relinquishing this up into the realm of Medicine Buddha. So basically, the intention is what matters here, and intention, the sense that your heart is basically the source of these qualities. So in many of these deity meditations, we begin by meditating on the deity above us and in front of us, and receiving the rays of light, purifying body, speech, and mind within us, and receiving that into our heart. And then ultimately we become the deity. We dissolve into white light, whether it's Bekhandze or another being or an energy, the energy that is non-local, if you will, to us, dissolving that into white light, into our heart, and then we become that quality. We basically become the radiant Medicine Buddha ourselves. And then we extend that from the heart. We extend that specifically to others, those for whom we are practicing, that they be well, that they be safe, peaceful, and so on.
And Chris, it's okay to be laying down, correct?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah. In fact, many of the people in the hospital that I practice this with were in the bed. We're in a hospital bed. So it's perfectly fine to practice that way. Okay.